everybody. Welcome to Women Daring Greatly. I'm your host, Andrea Ivanka, and right now, all over the world, there's a shift happening with women just like us, stepping into leadership roles, opening businesses, becoming entrepreneurs, and literally creating a new way of being where we live, we love, and we lead from a uniquely feminine perspective. That's why in this series, you're getting to hear from dynamic powerhouse women like my special guest today, Lindsay, Tabas, who are sharing their wisdom, tools, and strategies to spark your passion, step into your purpose, and accelerate your profits. One of the things that I'm so excited to speak to Lindsay about today is how do you actually avoid some of the pitfalls that early startups have in terms of getting your product out into the marketplace. So we're going to be diving into all kinds of things about authentic power, connection, and building a successful business. So for those of you that are meeting Lindsay for the very first time, welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you. Welcome to everyone else, and thank you for having me.
So for those of you who are meeting Lindsay for the first time, just a little bit about her. She is a product market fit expert and startup advisor under Lady Engineer. I love that brand, by the way. Lindsay helps most female non-technical founders design and sell the right product before spending too much time with developers building the wrong one. Super important. Ready to jump in?
Yeah. It's super important. People don't realize how it's almost an epidemic. It really is. Non-technical people coming in and thinking that software developers are the first people that they need to hire when they're getting their startup built.
Yeah. Oh, this is just some of the stuff we're going to be talking about today. So let's start with you first. I mean, I'm not in tech, but I'm fascinated with tech. I'm kind of obsessed with female founders in general. Your brand, Lady Engineer, helps all of these non-technical founders. And really, you've worked with like over 100 startups. That's incredible. So how did the idea for your business come about, and how did you get started?
Yeah, so I'll start with a little bit of my background. I started designing software in 2002 when I was studying engineering in college, and I became obsessed with this idea that we could design technology for people. When I finished college, I went to Silicon Valley with a twinkle in my eye. That was 2005. I had big startup dreams, big startup dreams. What I found as I was establishing my career there in product management and user experience design, while also executing the startup blueprint on the weekends, top 5 pitch competitions, finding tech co-founders, getting projects written about. What I found was that the people I was meeting and the overall industry did not share the same compassion I had for designing technology for people, right? I remember in 2006, I went to a panel with Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook and Reid Hoffman of LinkedIn, and I raised my hand. This was 2006. This was before our parents were on Facebook. I raised my hand and I asked him when he was going to hire social science researchers because he was fundamentally changing the way that we connect with each other, and he really dismissed my question. So I had this underlying frustration with the overall industry that they didn't care for the end person as much as they cared for the technology they were building, and we see the side effects of that still to this day. But I also struggled a lot, and I think most women can relate in their 20s trying to figure out their career. I struggled a lot wondering if maybe I wasn't cut out for the industry because of that. Maybe I didn't have what it takes, because of that. So fast forward, 2014, I started just being self-employed as an independent contractor. And in 2017, 3 years into being an independent consultant, I realized that the time had really come for me to be much more authentic in the work that I was doing. And to that end, I believe we need technology that truly supports people so we can all design ourselves into the future. And by living that in my business, I'm going to help the compassionate and people-minded founders out there, right? What I found is when I started using that language, the people that are compassionate and people-minded tend to be women, right? And women are mostly not technical, which means they're not obsessed with using a specific technology like augmented reality, virtual reality, artificial intelligence. They're obsessed with solving a problem or creating a new opportunity. And those are the types of founders that I really want to support. And since I've been here for so long and I've struggled for so long, like, I can open doors and get them, you know, backstage in VIP faster than if they just wait in the line with every other startup founder out there trying to do the business, right? Build their business. So.
I love that, because one of the things that we're starting to talk about more openly is the fact that men and women are wired differently. So it's like you said, as you started to use that certain languaging about compassionate and really, I'm going to say at the heart of it, people-centered, you started to find that, yes, this was women, and we are wired differently. So we're talking about uniquely feminine perspectives on the show on Women Daring Greatly. So I've got a two-part question here, okay? Especially because you've worked with a lot of women, a lot of female founders. Like, one, what are you seeing are some of the challenges that female founders face in getting into this tech startup arena? And two, on the flip side of that, what are some of the positive trends that you're seeing as a shift? So challenges and then positive trends.
Okay. So I'll go back to what I just said. No longer do you have to be technical to understand how technology solves a problem. So that's lowered the barrier to entry for women who right now are not technical. It's going to be another generation for us to see the efforts we're putting into STEM education for young girls. So it's a plus in my eyes because they're solving real problems. But, you know, at the end of the day, they're still going to need technical help, right? And understanding when to hire technical help or when to look for it is still going to be a challenge to them. The other challenge is that the thought leadership in the tech industry is not diverse, right? The majority of the opinions we see out there are coming from men. Men lead differently, men create differently, men take risks differently than the way women do. And so the directions and instructions that they're following when they get started, whether they're just looking for advice on Medium or they're reading some of the popular books out there, they're really coming from a male perspective. And so they get very uncomfortable in the process trying that advice, right? They get uncomfortable trying that advice, and then just like I did in my 20s, get discouraged that maybe they're not cut out for it, right? So that's the big challenge, is that they are getting advice from a different perspective that maybe just isn't going to be comfortable for them.
Yeah. I've certainly found that too, because I work with a lot of female entrepreneurs, but in a different way than you do. And even I found that in my industry with coaching and performance coaching, is so much of what was originally created was by men for men. And then there's just this frustration with women trying to apply certain strategies and tools for performance that are out of context. Mm-hmm. So I can totally appreciate where you're coming from with that. And the fact that this is also happening across industries tells me that there is a real challenge here. And on the flip side of that, there's an opportunity for growth.
Of course.
So what are maybe some of the positive trends that you're seeing as this awareness is starting to happen?
Yeah. So for March, Women's History Month, I wrote an article on why I believe that women are the future of technology innovation. And besides the first being that they're not technical, two is that I take what we're told are traditionally bad things, like, oh, we're not as risk-taking as men. We're too risk-averse. I took that and did the flip side. Women validate their assumptions, right? So the number one reason startups fail, tech startups fail, the number one reason is that they launch to no market need. That basically means that they identified a problem, stubbed out a solution, had it built, and then looked for product market fit but they didn't have customers. They skipped a lot of the early stage, understanding your customer, understanding their psyche, understanding what problem you're solving for them. So women being risk averse and not wanting to invest so much money in software development up front, bulldozing through product development, they tend to validate their assumptions up front, which makes their businesses a lot healthier once they do invest in development. They also, you know, we're not as, we're told that we don't brag as much, that we don't promote ourselves as much. But there's a real risk in the tech world, particularly when you're looking for investment, that if you brag too much, it's going to make you look untrustworthy. So while I work with entrepreneurs, that's my primary thing, 20% of my time I perform due diligence for angel investors. So I review startups and write up a 40 to 50 page report for investors on just everything about their business. And when I have an entrepreneur who gets to the point where I'm doing due diligence, the investor is pretty confident in what they know about them. And if I find out that that confidence is built on lies, that looks really, really bad, right? It looks even worse than, you know, maybe just something being a little smaller than what you said it was. So women state the reality. Women are also far more coachable. And from the investor point of view, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for entrepreneurs that aren't going to dig their heels in and be super obstinate. We're looking for entrepreneurs that will welcome the advice of the investors and advisors that they surround themselves with. And so there is a study showing that when given bad advice, women tend, or not bad advice, giving critical feedback, women tend to act on it, while men tend to kind of throw a temper tantrum and then figure out a way to avoid it. So maybe I'll link you that article later, and so people can look for that research. And then also women do more with less. I mean, we're given less, but we know how to do more with it. So if you ever see Silicon Valley HBO, some of that stuff is very true. Women are not raising money and then throwing a huge party, right? But I've definitely seen male-led startups doing that, right? So
it's such a fascinating perspective, and one of the things that I so appreciate about your perspective is really taking certain aspects of how we're wired, how we function as women, that historically we've been told that's a negative, right? It's actually something that diminishes our ability to really thrive in a competitive business environment. And what we're actually seeing is a lot of these are strengths. And I'm seeing this from different places, like to your point about blind spots. I read a book called Blind Spots by an author in Australia who was taking a look at all of these feminine aspects that are actually really powerful when applied in business. So for me, it's really exciting to hear it from you as well. So thank you for that. One of the things I want to pivot a little bit, because I know you help a lot of companies with their startup strategy and roadmap and getting really good feedback on that. You use something called an innovation cycle framework. So tell us a little bit about that and why it's so important.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, when I was in Silicon Valley in 2005 to 2010, I was also, just figuring out my own professional identity, as we do in our 20s. And I followed that startup blueprint. And I did everything that you hear you're supposed to do. I kept doing it when I moved to New York. And by 2016, 17, I realized, I had adjusted my process, my thinking had evolved. I didn't really see that advice as being good advice anymore. But when I looked at what was still going on in the industry and what was still being published on Medium and in books, we were still getting the same result, 90% failure rate, and it was still pretty much the same advice, just using different terminology, which Silicon Valley loves to introduce new terminology for things that have been around for a long time. So I had evolved, but the industry hadn't, right? And so what I was seeing, particularly when it comes to product market fit, which is the idea that your business and product are aligned with the target market, so much so that the perceived value is not a hard sell anymore, right? And you're going to start to hit some inflection points where growth is a lot easier than it was before. But the advice around product market fit is that it's an inflection point. So it's that problem that I had previously mentioned. Find a problem, stub out a solution, build an MVP, and then go look for product market fit. Well, there's a lot of danger and a lot of investment, and there's a lot of disappointment that can happen as a result of that. So wouldn't it be better if instead of having some big inflection point that we're trying to find called product market fit, if we have 7 smaller benchmarks from the very beginning of the inception of an idea to help us make sure that we are always consistently aligned with the business and the customer. So that's what the innovation cycle framework is. It's my response to product market fit, breaking it down. And what I've been told is that it's helpful not just for tech startups, but for service-based businesses as well, to understand the development of their services in an iterative way. And so I was told it's a better, more relevant way to work through product market fit.
I love it. I mean, when I just think of different people I've talked to in their entrepreneurial journey and just how much of the quote unquote bad advice that's out there, like just hustle, just get it out there. And I kind of go, well, hold on a sec. I mean, you can get it out there, but if nobody's buying, you just spent all of this time, all of this energy to hear crickets. And at the end of the day, like, this is it's your life. It does matter. So having this kind of a structure, I think, is very, very powerful for people. And I always love when I hear, like, you took what you learned and now created something out of it to help other people, right?
Yeah.
So that being said, like, what are some of the challenges then you see for companies that are wanting to get their product out in the marketplace, like when they don't know any better?
Yeah, so there are 3 myths that I outline in my free ebook, which is available on my website for anyone to download, so we can talk about that later. But there's 3 myths that we all fall into, non-technical people, technical people, everyone, when we are creating ideas, okay, and creating businesses. One is that we believe that if we experience a problem, that there probably or must be enough other people that experience that problem to make this a business, right? So we also believe that if we solve this problem, there's a business there. And so from the very beginning, people jump past the exploration of the problem space and go straight to the solution. And the reason is that when we experience a problem for ourselves, it's anxiety producing. So we look for a solution. And when we find a solution, we're relieved. The serotonin starts flowing. But in all reality, we go with the first solution that we thought of. And if we go with the first solution, it's not innovative. Why do you think we have so many travel, food, and event apps that solve the problem the same way? Mm-hmm. So the big thing is to slow down and follow Albert Einstein's advice. So he has 2 quotes that I love. One is, "It's not that I'm so smart, I just stuck with the problem longer." And 2, given an hour, I'd spend 55 minutes on the problem, 5 minutes on the solution. So that's the first myth. The second myth is thinking we're the customer, so that if a solution works for us, we think everyone else will use our solution and it will work for them. And that's just not the case. I ask a room always, like, how many of you have, like, proposed a solution to a group and then been disappointed because no one tried it, no one followed through with it? Like, it's hard to get people to solve the problem the way you want to. And 3 is, if we build it, they will come, which is so false. We think our product is so amazing, and of course what we're building is so amazing, that we don't put early versions of the product out there to get feedback, and we're scared of that negative feedback, but then we're overconfident that everyone will love it when it's finished. And so
a lovely catch-22, isn't it?
right. I mean, it all comes down to ego. In reality, like it all comes down to like your ego and self-awareness. And the reality is that we can actually co-create solutions with our customers rather than waiting until we're finished with our solution to show it to someone.
And that's a really different headspace. You know, it really is. It can be very vulnerable for people in a certain sense because, yeah, you're putting something out there potentially before it's fully formed, and yet the payoff is huge. Like when you're co-creating something with your marketplace, with your ideal clients, and they're actually giving you feedback into it, you actually get to create something that they want instead of hoping that the idea that you had works.
Yeah.
So that's really powerful. So based on those myths then, what tips would you have for somebody that, I mean, you've alluded to it a little bit, to make sure that a business has a good idea and a solid business idea before they really get their product out there?
Yeah. So the first two benchmarks of my innovation cycle framework are founder problem fit. That's like why you are the best to solve this problem. And problem value fit. And problem value fit is I've identified a problem so painful, people are willing to spend time, money, give me data to solve it, right? So this is what I tell people early on. And this is the case if you've already started developing the product. I would encourage you to take a pause, go back to look at all the customer interviews you've already done and do more. And do not settle until you find at least 5 people who not only gave you 30 minutes to an hour of their time to be interviewed, but are so excited that you are solving this problem that they almost are checking up on you. They want to be with you on this. They go, tell me what else I can do to help. How can I get involved, right? We call those people our early evangelists. They're like the early adopters and also the evangelists. You need those 5 people to come along for the ride in the co-creation of the solution with you. As a service-based person myself, who was also looking at productized services as well, when I started pivoting into the lady engineer, I recruited 5 early stage founders to do a 3-month program with me. And we met every 2 weeks as a group and also one-on-one. And I created probably over 300 plus pages of content to help them through their development process. So they held me accountable, and then I could see how they use those PDF resources. And that made my product and my offer so much stronger.
Yeah. Well, that to me makes a lot of sense, even from a service perspective. You know, I've seen it time and time again where, I don't know, you and I talked a little bit about this, right? With a little bit on, you see the social media, it's like, just get your SEO up or get your website up, or, you know, just get this one thing up and like, boom, everything's going to happen overnight. And it doesn't really happen that way, at least not in my experience from working with people. It actually takes time to put a proper foundation into place.
Yeah, I mean, your customers have to trust you to pay you for anything, right? And trust is a function of time and repeated interactions. So you can't really rush that. And if you try to rush that, you get into being gimmicky, right? And trying to kind of catch people, almost like those late night TV infomercials. And that's not authentic. That I tried some of that stuff. That didn't feel authentic to me. The reality is if you can't find those 5 early evangelists now, how are you going to go find them later once you have the website and the SEO built,
Yeah.
right? So you should go find them now and start building the relationship with them, because that also takes time, right?
Well, and the relationship is at the heart of it. Like to your point about the gimmicky stuff, I remember seeing something like close $10,000 clients in 10 minutes, like the very first time. And I was like, okay, maybe if you've got a ton of like testimonials behind you and all kinds of marketing and people already know who you are, maybe. But that gimmicky stuff, the more people are getting, I think, aware of the importance of long-term relationships, how that actually leads to sustained business health for the business to grow because of their client relationships. I think a lot of people are just maybe they might get sucked in a little bit from clicking on ads, but at the end of the day, like it doesn't lead to sustained business. So yeah.
Absolutely correct.
So we're getting close to the end now. We've got a couple minutes of left. One of the things I always like to ask people when we're getting to this point is there anything else you'd like to add to the interview that we didn't discuss that you just would absolutely love for the audience to know?
I think the thing that we just spoke about, I want to emphasize is that people talk a lot about resilience and that you need to build resilience to be an entrepreneur. And that's kind of the idea that you face a challenge and then you return back to normal. And I really see it more as persistence, i.e., you face challenges and you grow and you continue, and you face challenges and you grow and you continue. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs rush the early stages of idea development and problem exploration because they think that there's pressure to be first to market, like get it out there before someone else gets it out there. And that's a false belief. That's anxiety rushing you to do things and rushing the creative process. And at the end of the day, you're just going to end up being disappointed because things do take time. So take the time, like I said, marinate in the problem. I sometimes say pickle yourself. Like you have to pickle yourself, and that's like a long time. And there's anxiety there, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I know something that you've got for everybody today is something that's going to help them actually figure out where they are in the process, called the Startup Scorecard. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I love taking those quizzes we used to do in like Cosmopolitan and Glamour magazine, and then making them for startups. So the Startup Scorecard kind of takes on the premise that as entrepreneurs, we tend to bowl 8 lanes at the same time, and then we don't bowl any of those 8 lanes really well, and struggle to figure out, like, okay, if I'm just going to bowl like 2, maybe 3, which are they going to be? So the Startup Scorecard is broken into, I think, about 10 lanes, and you can score yourself across each of those. It's going to work for service-based people who are building a website or extending their value by installing something like MemberPress and subscription services or any type of technology. And it also works for the tech startup founders. We go through things like how confident you are in the revenue, the market size, how you think through your ideas, how you collaborate with software developers. You can see where you rate, and then you can see what score you want to be, and kind of the maturity of your operations and how you think through problems in general.
That's really, really helpful. I love being able to identify where you are and then where the next step is, so you know where you're growing into. That's really powerful. Thank you so much for that. And if people want to find out more about you and connect with you online, where should they go?
They can find me at lindsayt.com. I'm also Lindsay T on Twitter and Instagram. So also on Facebook, Lindsay T Lady Engineer. So if you just look up, go to your favorite search engine and type in Lindsay T Lady Engineer, you'll find me.
Thank you so much. So I want to thank you for being with us here on Women Daring Greatly, first of all.
Oh, well, thank you. This is great. I love how we connected. I love how fast we were able to make something happen, and am really grateful for you inviting me to be a part of this.
Yeah, me too. You know what? And to that point, sometimes when, again, the relationship, the connection, there's just ways to make things happen together, which you can't really do alone as a founder of anything. So I want to thank you for being here, for watching this episode of Women Daring Greatly with Lindsay Tabas. And we are providing you with inspiring stories, powerful ideas, and practical tools and strategies to help you grow your business, really take your passion and turn it into a profit. So thank you so much for being here with us. I'm Andrea Ivanka, your host, and I'll see you on the next episode.